Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello and welcome to The People's View. This is sponsored by the National Republican City Committee, and I'm Representative Carl Seidel from Ward 1. And our guest today is the senator from District 13, is it?
12.
12, I'm sorry.
Good to be with you, Carl. Yeah.
And Jim Luth. And Jim is going for his second term. And
That's right.
You had an interesting first term, I think. Didn't you?
Busy,
It
yes.
was busy.
Yeah, it was certainly, we came into some pretty challenging fiscal issues.
Oh, yes.
We basically had to deal with about $800 to $900 million hole. Now, of course, the other side will deny that and say they ended with a surplus, but we know better. We can look at the budget documents and all. Yeah. And had to live within our means, right?
Yes,
I mean, this is really what every person I know in this state, they had to tighten their belts, and I think they asked us to do the same as state government, and that's what we did. Both chambers.
We've been saying promises made, promises kept.
Exactly.
And
that's
what we
right.
did was we started to find out how much money we're having, and that's all we're going to spend.
Isn't that it, Carl? And I'm on Ways and Means,
Yeah.
and for those who don't know, that's the revenue side, and then the Finance Committee would be the spending side. It's a good idea to kind of know how much money you're going to get in before you figure out how you're going to spend it, right? I think all households try to do that, because if you don't do that, you're going to run a big balance on your credit cards.
Well, I saw that my first term. They did it
right.
backwards.
Yeah.
They spent it, and then they figured out where they're going to get it from, and they didn't always balance the budget. You had to make corrections.
And isn't it interesting, though? By state law, technically we have to balance the budget.
Right.
So people sort of hear this and they don't know. Yeah. So yes, technically it's balanced, but a lot of games can be played, like first taking all the federal stimulus dollars, and then when you're running all those programs, well, how are you going to fund that in the next session, right?
That's
Which
right.
is hundreds of millions of dollars.
And not only on the state level, the county level, and the local level.
Right.
All those federal dollars go away, and the strings that are attached make you continue paying for them.
Right. This is not a one-time thing. That's, government programs work that way. And so I know this is what I heard from my constituents, I'm sure you did the same, which is, hey, we're in a tough economic time. This is certainly not the time to be raising taxes.
Right, right.
And certainly in our state, the biggest component of the taxes is the business taxes. So we would have had to hit businesses even more when they're struggling. And I don't think that was the right thing to do.
I agree with you there.
But and then we also had we had the where they moved money out of the general fund and put it in other funds, and we hear that Maggie Hassan is saying she cut cut spending.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's like taking it under one shell and putting it under another, right?
It's the shell game.
But if you have the real numbers, you see what's going on.
Well, I thought the most unique thing they did 2 years ago was to borrow money from the university.
Well, this is interesting. Well, and the other one that drives me crazy, because I have a finance background, and any business, you do not borrow, you don't put out long-term borrowings to pay daily expenses, and that's what they did.
Yeah,
that's the worst thing you can do.
Right, we're going to be paying extra a couple $100,000, I believe.
That's right, and certainly bond ratings are important for the state. So we have to show that we're in good shape, and certainly. The amount of borrowings that the state had certainly increased before we got there. So, and we don't want to be like a California or an Illinois, because I think one of the biggest things is we want to attract more businesses here.
Right.
Because that's where jobs come from. Jobs don't just appear out of thin air. And in New Hampshire, we are really the home of small business. So. Being able to help the LLCs and the S corps.
Yeah, proportionately, I think we're probably the leader in that.
We are If
as
we're
far
not
as
number
the-
one, we are
yeah.
certainly probably in the top 5 in
Yeah.
the country.
But
So
this is a nice environment to start
it's-
your own company.
Absolutely. I started my own business here, a couple decades ago, and and it's not a huge state, so you can deal with the right people and and get things done. So yeah.
And I think there were some of the agencies, though, were sort of losing that connection.
And there was some. I know some of that was addressed in the legislature
That's
this
right.
past session. I think it has, because really, I think that we have to think of businesses in essence almost as clients, right? From the executive branch, if you're working with DRED, which
Okay.
would be nice if we can.
We're going to change that name.
We have to change that name. So you have at economic development.
Yeah.
We have the Department of Resources, which is forestry and all that stuff with economic development. We could change that around.
Yeah.
But they ought to be thinking of businesses as clients.
That's right.
How do we serve you better so that you can grow the number of employees you have and be attracting more businesses? I know last night at the event I was talking to several people. There's certainly been a lot of discussion about right to work, as far as us becoming a right to work state. And one person said to me, who is a significant employer, by the way, we're talking hundreds of people in New Hampshire. He really thought as a business, he's not talking as a politician, as a business, he thought that would be very significant. And this is what he said to me. They have a choice of building a plant. This is an $8 million plant in Brockton, Massachusetts, or in New Hampshire. And they're waiting until this next session to see whether we can get right to work through. If we don't get right to work through, they're going to build that plant in Mass. And that's one example of why we need to be doing this, because employers see that. Now, we certainly have had debate on both sides, but I think it's very clear from the business perspective that this is something that gives them more flexibility, and we need this. We need better paying jobs. We've talked about this many times. We need more jobs. We have a lot of folks in this state who are underemployed and unemployed, and certainly the unemployment number is not an accurate reflection of the true health of the jobs in this state.
No, it's that underemployment number that's
absolutely. And my guess is we're well over 10%. If we took the true the number of people who are in part-time jobs, low-paying jobs, they want to be in better jobs, and then you include the people who've stopped looking for work, who are underemployed, I'm sure we're well over 10%. And then we have over 10% of New Hampshire residents commute to Mass for work. I don't think they do that by choice, because they're getting the property tax up here and the income tax down there. I'm sure they'd much rather stay in the state. We'd love to see them stay in the state, right?
Yeah, sure.
We help the Fidelities and the BAEs. They're the bigger businesses, and then the small businesses.
Well, there's a lot of mid-sized businesses that want to grow too.
Absolutely.
And we want to encourage them to grow. We don't want to hinder them.
Right.
So we're really, I think one of the things that we really turned around this year was the business environment. We're really working with the agencies to welcome the people in.
Right.
Give them all this information they need up front. Don't just wait and have an audit and then say, hey, you didn't do this.
Right.
Well, we never knew about it.
Right.
Educate them right in the beginning.
And then you and I worked on a similar issue, which was the net operating loss.
That's right.
Which we were, and I didn't realize this coming as a freshman, one of the most restrictive states in the country, only being able to claim $1 million, raising it to $10 million.
Yeah.
So that really helps us.
And we're still one of the, on the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
But at least we're making a
We're
step
making some progress.
We're showing them that that's what we're going to do.
And isn't that the thing, Carl, that really, when you think about it, I think a lot of folks would say, hey, we've really got the New Hampshire advantage. But when you look at it, this is a moving target, and certainly we've slipped in some areas. We've got to keep fighting at that. We've got to be vigilant at that. And certainly I know that's going to be the theme when I get back up to Concord. I'm sure that is for you as well, right?
I'm staying, Business Coalition and the Rules and Regulations Commission.
Absolutely.
And if we got to get a Republican governor in there too, don't we?
And that,
so we can,
absolutely. And by the way, I was the first state senator to endorse with Lemon-Tain. So I'm really for him, and I think that I was at the debate at Rivier College. I thought he did an outstanding job there. And it's sort of interesting to watch the debate the other night with the president and the one that I saw. Very similar in that you had one side really just throwing out sort of attacks and positions, and I'm like, is that really factual? Hearing these numbers, like Maggie saying that under their watch they were very fiscally responsible,
Had a surplus.
balanced the budget, and had a surplus. And I'm like, okay, all right. And then at the federal, and it's kind of interesting. You see these different philosophies, and I really appreciate that Ovid is bringing a gracious style. I mean, I think the guy's a real gentleman. He's not going to go out and attack, but he's stating some very clear positions. And I think, again, and I've mentioned this before to folks, that, and one of the things that I don't think we don't talk about a lot in politics is how you lose. And I was there that night in the primary for the Senate, the U.S. Senate 2 years ago, when he came out, and how gracious he was, and not to ask for the recount when he certainly very well could have.
He ran a very good race.
Was a really, and I think that every citizen really wants to see that their officials are good people. They're not just pushing a bunch of buttons and gears moving, and that they know what's going on. They've got integrity. They've got just a grace about them. And I think that one of the things about Ovid too, that he even said a couple things about the way that Governor Lynch governed, that he wanted to be similar. And certainly we hear Governor Lynch was very popular because he connected with people.
That's right.
There was a warmth to him, and I think people want to know that our governor is a guy that his door's open, he's willing to listen, and he's a gracious guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the face of the state too.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
You're going to invite companies in there, and that they're going to want to talk to the governor if they can. And we don't spend enough time or effort on really attracting companies. I don't want to knock the people that are doing it. They're doing, a good job with what they have, but we have to do a little bit more, and we have to work with a plan, a strategic plan to get those companies in.
Absolutely.
And we have to make sure that all the agencies they're going to deal with are welcoming of them.
Right, because I mean it's a win-win. When companies feel like they're being served by government, and they're growing. We have an expanding tax base, so government is able to be funded more. We can have more folks in those departments. The businesses are winning. It's a win-win.
I don't know why some people can't see that. You don't raise the tax rate. You raise
the base, right?
The base. And you have more money coming in that way.
Well, it's kind of, isn't it basic economics, Carl? I think a lot of people,
it's very logical.
They don't. It's like physics.
Yeah.
You have sort of supply and demand, right? Remember those two curves?
Yeah.
And and if you raise the price of something or raise the tax of something, you're going to have diminishing returns. And you try to find where is that sweet spot. And I think that we try to look at how can government be limited. There's a self-limiting sense, because I think government by its very nature wants to expand. That's its very nature.
Sure.
So we have to say, all right, what can we do with the money we have?
Small and most effective government's the best government.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
People just have to see how that can work. And we can look at the other states, the ones that this tax the rich thing. What did they do in New Jersey, in Delaware?
Right.
And people moved out.
Absolutely.
And they actually went down. They raised the tax, and the total income was less.
I was just out in California in May, and talked to a lot of folks out there in the legislature, and the Wall Street Journal just did a story recently, because there's a significant increase going into place in the income tax in California, and certainly they've got a tough.
They're going over 10%, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a big jump, and when you're dealing with almost a $20 billion deficit, you've got some. But what everybody's saying is there's going to be a mass exodus of wealthy people, because I think what people forget is, if you think about money, money is fluid, and folks, they're not locked into staying in that state, and so they'll find a place. Especially if they're a business owner, right? Where's an environment where I could, like Albany International, you've heard about, they moved from New York State, a very high tax environment, to New Hampshire, and all these new jobs here. That's why they moved. They were fleeing that state, and so we want to stay attractive, and if we're not, then we may see some businesses leave. We don't want to do
we're
that.
surrounded by
states that have higher taxes than us. I mean, if you look at the overall tax
Right.
that the companies have to pay.
Right. Right.
And it's just a good environment.
It is.
I mean, we ought to take advantage of
And
that.
that's it. And I think and that's going to be my focus in the next session, is continuing to move forward with bills and also doing a lot of partnership work. One of my focuses is also working with the community college system, because workforce training,
I agree with you.
I know you and I agree on this, is critical. We hear this a lot. I mean, I was really surprised how many businesses that I've run into in the last 2 years that can't find qualified help. And I'm like, wait a minute. You have all these people looking for work, and you have these businesses with openings. There's got to be a way to bring these together, right?
That's right.
So, and I think the community college system, with Ross Cattell, who's the new chancellor, and Lucille Jordan, who is the president at National Community College, just doing an outstanding job. Ross is bringing a business focus.
Right.
And they have how much they're reaching out to businesses with the internships and the apprenticeships.
And tying in with the 4-year college, too.
That's it, with Granite State.
Right.
That is just, they're working with that. They are being proactive. They're not reactive, they're proactive. And Lucille actually shared with me that one of the things that they're really focusing on is counseling the kids in the first semester when they get there, looking at their majors, which are the most marketable for careers. Yeah, this is great. I mean, I would think, because if you get out of a 4-year program and you've put, say, $100K of debt on yourself or your parents or you, and you're having a hard time finding a job, that's not a real good place to be. And I think the community college approach, where you, especially if you're not quite sure, right? You say, okay, let me start here. I'll get some of the base stuff, and then if I want to go into the 4-year deal. My wife's in the nursing. She's the assistant director of that now at Nashua, and they now will have the bachelor's, so they can go from getting an RN in the 2 years and then continuing with Granite State. And that is opening up all kinds of possibilities. And the automotive program. Lucille was telling me that in that area, that National Community College will be one of the few schools in the United States that's going to offer a bachelor's degree in automotive technology.
No kidding. Oh,
so, and one of the things that she said is, if you want to look into moving into management, you need a bachelor's.
Yeah, sure.
And so that to me is just great thinking.
So they give the business background as well as
Absolutely, and they're working with Honda right now. That my son's in the auto program. He loves it.
Yeah.
So
Good.
This is, I can't laud them enough for the great work that they're doing there. So I want to stand with them in this next term and try to get more funding for them. I've stood with them in the past, and then also I actually brought all the presidents and the chancellor to meet with the Republican caucus of the Senate, so the Senate could hear the story, because I think Ross's vision is a great vision.
Good. Yeah, I agree with you there. They made a great presentation to the
business
the bonding group.
Oh, the bonding group. Oh,
Yeah.
oh yes, that's right.
They made a
For the
beautiful
capital.
presentation for that.
Absolutely.
And we have a worry about charter schools too now. This is a little mix-up with the money situation. I was over at the Academy of Technology and Science and Technology.
Yes.
Amazing story. They now have over 400 people in there now.
Wow.
They got a new building, lots of equipment in there, and the kids. We went through the whole thing there. The kids enjoy it. They're disciplined. They know they're there to learn, and they have the freedom to go at their own pace for the lot. And 30 teachers now. And I don't know, it was in Merrimack, now it's in Nashua.
Nashua.
Amazing.
We had quite a bit of debate on the Senate floor around this area about funding. And what I find a little frustrating is that it's just, let's get more money to the public school system. But I'm like, well, the United States spends more per student than any other country in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, in the country, in the
world.
The world. But we keep slipping. I don't even think we're in the top 20 anymore, or we're down near the bottom. And it's like, money is not the answer here. And I think if we look at the free markets, competition will always bring the best product. And I remember somebody telling me this, and if you think about college, you got a really competitive market, right?
That's right.
But at the secondary and primary, there's no competition. Now, I'm talking from a funding perspective, because we pay our local taxes to fund the schools. But if we choose to send one of our children the private school, then we pay above that.
Yeah.
And I think that what we've seen with the charter schools, when you really have a competitive environment, I think for the kids, because that's really who we're focusing on here, it's the kids, that they are the best equipped that they can be when they get out into the marketplace, because they're competing in a global market.
That's right.
And I'm concerned that we are not doing the job to really get them to that place, because you think about what's the end product? It's our kids. They've got to be fully equipped to go out there.
And the approach is internally in this charter school that I was at this morning, a little competition among the kids. You
Is that
group them
right?
together. 4 or 5.
Like, what are they doing to
They're making some models or
okay.
something.
Yeah.
And and there's a purpose. They teach principles while they're teaching a practical application of the principles, which is
That's real world, isn't it?
that's it.
You remember the old thing? You hear a teacher, they're teaching this stuff, and we always ask, is it going to be on the exam, right?
Yeah, right. That's all.
Oh, but you may never use this in your life, but we're learning it, right?
Yeah. But this now is a practical application.
That's
They
great.
remember that.
That's great.
I know that was the part of the problem I had when I was
Yeah.
in college. Tell me how I'm going to be using this. But the teachers there would do that.
They get that.
But I think
Right.
that we're losing that in our high schools. And from having your wife at the community college, how many of our kids from Nashua High School are taking remedial classes?
at the community college. It's I
no
think,
evaluation, as you said. Just throw money at it. That's not going to solve the problem.
Right, and Lucille talking about this is a real challenge for the community college, because they're getting more and more kids. It keeps going up who are not ready.
Yeah.
And that's so the burden is falling on the community college system, and I think we got to look at that picture, because there's some issues I think we have to address there.
Yeah. And this has been smoldering. I mean, it's just getting
Right,
larger
it's
and
just-
larger.
absolutely.
And we're sinking lower and lower in the world ratings.
Well, don't you? I mean, certainly in the work environments, Carl, I've been in, when you excel in your job, you want to be recognized. You want to be equipped to do that. And I think some of the challenges in the educational environment is that you're sort of restrained from being able to do that in the public system. And I think that that when you have a really creative person who comes in and wants to try some new things, like bringing in multiple learning approaches into this, we need to help those teachers to do that. Because I think that's why men and women are going into teaching, because they have a passion and a love. And the other thing, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is I think we also need to shift more towards subject matter knowledge and expertise versus just knowing how to teach. I know, I don't know if this is the case for you, but I know for me, the teachers that had an impact in my life were the ones who were infectious and excited about the topic they're teaching.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is great. Look at this guy. He's just...
And that's what I saw at that
right?
charter
And that's
school.
what you saw at the charter
And
school. Yeah.
the thing they're doing is they're spreading a course over a couple of years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which
Wow.
is, and so they can advance in that. So somebody might finish a 3-year course in 2 years. That's at their pace.
Exactly, and I think that's...
They mix them up.
That's
You could have 7th, 8th, and 9th graders all taking
Wow.
the same subject,
That's great.
and it's just working out well for them.
It's interesting, Carl. I was actually at my local bank this morning, and I was talking to the manager there, and one of the biggest concerns she has is the lack of just a financial understanding of young people. There's like checks. They don't know what a check is. They don't know what a checking account is, overdraft, these sorts of things. And she said, if she could do one thing, she'd like to see the schools teach more about personal finance and understanding that. And so the kids who are really going out can get that. I mean, she made a couple points I know, like for instance, we used to get all the paper bills. She would talk about her parents, Saturday mornings.
Oh.
Here's the stack of bills, here's the checkbook. Okay, we got to go through the bills and kind of moan and groan. And we pay them here, Well, our kids today, young kids, they don't see that, because most of the bills are not coming. There's no stack. The bills are being paid electronically. There's no, so there's really a change in the environment where everything's done on the web, where young people don't see, in essence, the cost of
Total
living,
cost, yeah.
right? Well, mom and dad, what are our expenses? We got the home insurance, we've got the auto insurance, we've got the heating bill, electricity, food, all that sort of stuff.
You never see the magnitude of overall.
you don't
it just
see
sort
that.
of flushes through.
Exactly.
Everything's electronic.
Right, and I think that's been one of my, I've been thinking about that a lot, is to help people understand it. Because certainly in this environment, because I do some of my own investing, is that I think a lot of people don't understand where they can look to save money. How do they grow their money? It's a tough environment out there. I mean, a CD, you can't even get 1%. It's working through those, keeping your credit card balances under control, all that sort of stuff.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
This conversation could go on and on and on.
We're just chatting away here.
But I think, Jim, I want to wish you luck on getting reelected.
Well, you too.
Thank you.
We share some of the same territory.
Hopefully we can continue to work
Well,
together
absolutely.
Up there.
It was great
really
fun,
good
and hope we can do it again.
And you feel like you're accomplishing something now,
Doesn't that feel right?
It was the first year I didn't feel that.
Yeah. Isn't that a good feeling?
I had 2 bills and neither of them got it off the floor, essentially.
Right.
Because one, the administration wanted to just add more money to it.
Yeah.
And the other one, they just, well, I won't
You
say
were
it.
right.
I got the wrong testimony, let's say.
Yeah, I understand. I hear you.
I never
Right.
got out of committee because of that.
Sure, sure.
But now I think
Well,
we're doing something.
Yeah.
So good luck, and thank you very
too.
much for the interview.
Thanks so much for having me
And
today.
thank you for listening in.